welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Leo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of November. I hope you are well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss for you today. So let's get straight on and see what is going on with you. I have 3 cards for Leo, please. There's the first one. We have the Chariot in your recent past. Current energy for Leo, please. We have 2 cards. We have the 3 of Swords and the Queen of Cups. And what's coming towards Leo, please. Thank you. We have the 8 of Wands. Right, at the bottom of the deck we have the Knight of Wands. And it's followed by the High Priestess and the Ace of Pentacles. So, Knight of Wands is Sagittarius energy. And it's, in your case, it does feel kind of opportunistic, but in the best possible way, Leo, in so much as your eyes are wide open at the moment at the possibility of, well, not the possibilities, the probabilities. You know, the High Priestess is right there, sitting behind the Knight of Wands. And the High Priestess is all about intuition and guidance from your higher self, right? And she speaks of lots of things, actually. But it's kind of... what I feel is you're moving forwards based on intuition, right? They're not necessarily any kind of evidential base that you could satisfactorily describe to people, but doing it nonetheless. I think often Sagittarius moves in the similar sort of way. It's like there's a vague plan, but the details of the plan aren't really that important at the moment. There's a goal being set, and there's a direction of travel. And it very much revolves around this Ace of Pentacles here. You know, the seeds that you are planting now that you hope to be able to harvest at a later point. It feels like it strikes right to the core of you, actually, Leo. And this Knight of Wands is almost kind of cantering around and saying, that's useful, I'll do that, and that's useful, I'll do that. And the big picture is kind of vague, but you know more or less the direction of travel, you know more or less where you're going. The Knight of Wands is very present, very present in the present. He's not too concerned with what's going on in the future. And I wonder if there's a balance that you're trying to strike here, Leo, between the here and now and the to come. And it probably feels a little bit out there at the moment, what you're trying to achieve. I mean, we've covered this a lot in the last few videos. You know, go back to my example of talk and using the difference between using a huge articulated truck to do something and a little 1-litre car. And you are definitely trying to move mountains at this point. Even if the end result is still too vague for you to be able to transmit it to other people in any kind of meaningful way. I mean, I think the people that are close know and understand, but they are few and far between. Some people might just be a little agog of what it is that you're trying to do at the moment, Leo. Can't get the head around it. Anyway, let's get some clarifiers out. I have some clarifiers for the Chariot. So we have the 3 of Swords out first. And we have the 9 of Swords. Interesting. So we've got the 3 of Swords and the Queen of Cups. We have the Magician. There it is. And the Queen of Swords. We'll get one more for that because we do have 2 in the present energy. That was the 8 of Pentacles that tried to jump out that didn't. And we have the Justice card. Okay. Tell me about the Eight of Wands, please. Well, we have the Queen of Wands and the Page of Pentacles. Okay, there you are, Leo, right at the bottom of the deck. Strength card. With the Ten of Swords sat behind it and the World, right? We've got two cards that speak there of culmination, of completion. And they're kind of uncomfortable. But it's right there under a card that speaks about strength, your personal strength, and the ways that you have grown, certainly in this last year. And the way that this Ten of Swords is sat behind the Strength card and the World card, and we're seeing a lot of this back here as well. It's a sense that everything that you are right now, and everything that you're achieving, and everything that you will go on to achieve, is a direct response to the difficulties that you have faced, the challenges. It seems to me, Leo, like there's a lot in your past that's quite dark. And I mean, that's probably true for most people. But there's a very particular way in which you have dealt with it. There's a very particular way that you have experienced it. And I think a huge part of that is making sense of why it has happened. You know, there isn't a it is what it is kind of feeling about this at all. It's like, no, there's a very particular and direct reason why things happened the way that they did, why I had the experiences that I did, and where it has taken me, and where it will take me in the future. Like, I sense a lot of meditation on this kind of position with you, because some people are driven by success, and you know, a lazy stereotype would say that Leo is driven by success, but actually, in my experience, Leo is driven by processing the things that give them that core of iron strength that is possibly missing in other people. Or is achieved differently, let's put it that way, achieved differently in other people. It has to be by direct experience for a Leo, and then you have to make sense of it, and then you need to order your thoughts and work out your direction of travel on the basis of that. It's not about escaping from what is difficult, more like having a database of how things have been difficult in the past and using that to navigate your way forwards, right? We know that these things lead to this, so we're not going to do that anymore. We know that these things do lead to that, so we will do those. But this sense of pain and anxiety and things that have been really, really difficult being the motivating force that is driving you forwards at the moment. And we're sitting, like I said, in the last couple of months, there's no small amount of energy that you are really trying to harness here. And I get the sense that you're actually really tired, but for some reason you can still put one foot in front of the other. You are still very much on this path and very, very determined. I mean, those two cards there were clarifying the Chariot. This is your recent past. You know, the motivation for you feels as much about the avoidance of pain and anxiety as it is about getting the things that you want. I'm going to pull another card. Yeah, I'll just pull this Waitsmith up for a second. These two cards here. Yeah, I mean, that's just beautiful. You have the Sun. Let me see, we'll put it where you can see it there. The Sun. It's the triumph of the Leo spirit over everything that you have endured up until this point. And I think the thing is, what you're trying to pull off now, because I do get the sense that a lot of you are trying to pull off something really pretty fucking huge, is that I totally lost my train of thought. I'll come back. It'll come back in a second. Just pulled a total blank staring at the sun there. You shouldn't stare at the sun, should you? Maybe that's why. That's what it does. No, okay. So the Sun is the card of Leo, right? It's one of the two cards of Leo in the major arcana. 3, I guess, if you include the World, right? You have triumphed over these things. That's where I was going with that. What you are trying to pull off here is not excoriatingly painful for you. You know, it's not requiring you to dig deep into your psyche and try and work out why the fuck you're doing this thing or you're not doing this thing or where your life's going or anything like that, right? There's a very simple plan, but it's huge. And the thing that has driven you thus far, and especially for the last 5 years, they've been quite dark at times for Leo, like really, really quite dark at times. It's all been about positioning your psyche into the right place, right? And the end goal with a lot of it was to just become a better person, right? Become a less anxious person, a less pained person, someone who doesn't project their shit onto other people, right? That's been the kind of energy that Leo has been in. And there've been certain things that you've been wanting to achieve, but ultimately it's been about not transferring that 3 of Swords and that 9 of Swords onto the situations in front of you, but more importantly, the people in front of you. And in that way, you have absolutely achieved, because we have the Sun, right? We have you here as a really authentic expression of Leo, and you're showing up twice, just in the few cards that we have on the table. You've triumphed over that. And what you're trying to pull off now, although it is huge, is nowhere near the level of magnitude of what you've done in the last 5 years. Because what you've been doing, there's that King of Cups there, with the Fool behind it, has been releasing yourself. It has been mastering your own emotions. It's been coming back to self, and it's been hard won. Compared to everything else that you've done in the last 5 years, this is a walk in the park, except that it is something new, it is something big, and it does feel like perhaps you're trying to take a lot of people with you. That's possible. But you're focusing on the Sun, on the feeling of the Sun now, rather than kind of having to grub around in the dark, right? We've all done a bit of grubbing around in the dark in the last 5 years. And I do feel like, because this started so early with you, Leo, that what's going on now in the world, and there is a lot going on now in the world, isn't affecting you in the same way that it would have done 6 years ago, right? You've grown. Oh, did that by accident. You know, you have achieved a level of mastery over yourself at this point, and you are now free to start exploring these bigger themes, these bigger ideas of what you might want to bring about for yourself in your life. Free of the overthinking, free of the anxiety, free of the just generalized concern that you have about the way that you will be received. I think a lot of you care a little less about that now than you ever have done before in your life. But interesting that in your current energy, we have the 3 of Swords and we have the Queen of Cups. And we're back to this idea of what has gone before being what is now informing you moving forwards, like, but in a really, really useful way. This is 3 of Swords here. I love the fact that Anatorian's done this in this deck. There are two 3 of Swords, and there are 2 10 of Swords, which arguably could be considered to be the most challenging cards in the deck. But I feel like it's all a matter of perspective, right? These 2 alternate interpretations of the 3 of Swords and the 10 of Swords end up being somewhat of an oasis in the middle of a really, really tricky suit, right? A really, really difficult suit. They're looking at them completely differently. So the 3 of Swords, which we have here, and we all understand the symbolism. I think it's the one card in the tarot that even if you have no idea what tarot is about, right, you can pick out what that means. Right? We have 3 swords going through a heart. It's very visceral, and everybody knows what it's like when that pain bites. You feel it literally in the heart. It's that moment of realization where the heart and the mind connect, and it's like suddenly everything's changed, whether it's through a loss, through, bereavement, whether it's realizing that you've been fucked over by someone, they all bite in the same way. This Three of Swords, though, and I just want to hold it there again for a second for you to see it. We've got somebody reading a book, and I think it's the book of their life, right? The Three Swords are in the book, and it's not showing up terribly well, but there are letters coming up off the book here, and as they get up here, they're kind of forming a vortex and they're going into this person's head, right? We've almost got a bit of a feedback loop, but it's rather than this Nine of Swords here, where we get stuck in cognitive loops and we can't break out of them when we overthink things and then things get really, really hard. There's a certain level of objectivity here. The letters are actually turning into birds. So yes, there is pain in your life, and yes, there are difficult things, but there are actually many things to be grateful for. And in some way, Leo, and it might sound slightly twisted to other people, but I think that Leos get it. There's a level of gratitude here for the things that you have experienced, because what a Leo wants to be more than anything else is strong. It's written into your DNA. And so when we're experiencing things that make us feel weak, make us feel like the kind of responses that we are having are not those of a strong person, that's when things start to fracture, because we're like, but this is what we're supposed to be, and I'm quite clearly looking at evidence of the fact that I am not that. Therefore, what even am I? It gets quite deep. I think it gets quite deep. Instead, what we have is somebody looking at all of these things and making sense of it and going, right, well, I experienced all of these things and I worked through all this and I grubbed around in the dark, and now I'm quite grateful because this means I have all of these tools at my disposal. There's the magician underneath, right? I have the wisdom of perspective. I have certain knowledge that when I am pulling together all of the energy that I have, I can actually achieve a lot, But more important than that, I think, in the grand scheme of things, is this Queen of Cups. I always think she acts a bit like a mitigating energy sometimes. Excuse me. She smooths off the edges of stuff. And between these two cards, what we have is somebody who has experienced great pain, great loss, great hardship in their life, in all sorts of different ways. And I've spoken to enough of you to know that that is a consistent theme throughout a Leo's life. But you've managed to stay soft with it. You haven't lost the compassion. Maybe you did lose it for a little while. I'm talking to some people at the weekend, and the Queen of Swords was always my significator when I was doing readings for myself. And then it changed. It changed into the Queen of Cups. It was over the course of several years. And it was at the time where I stopped putting my mind first, my brain first, and started paying attention to the other elements, the other queens. Eventually it morphed into the Queen of Wands, and we do actually have her here too. And I think it's quite interesting that we're having these cards come out like this. When life throws lemons at you, it's quite easy to become hard. You go, right, I'm going to treat this as conditioning and I'm just going to take them all to the face. And I'm going to judge people really harshly. And, I'm going to put up these huge walls that stop people getting anywhere near me because somewhere in there's a soft underbelly and I don't want anybody to find it. And if that has been you at points, Leo, and I think that we've all been there at points, that has been and gone, because now there is something very soft and very open, very vulnerable actually about you, which is what makes you all the more inspiring. Right? There's something very relatable and inspiring that people see when they look at you. They know what you have gone through. If they're close enough to you, they know at least some of the details of what you've gone through. And they've seen how fucking hard you have worked to get all of this in the right place, to make sense of it. And it's making something very special. Like I said, we've got this Magician card here, but we've got the Mother of Swords, which is the Queen of Swords, and we also have the Justice card. So we've got Gemini or Virgo, depending on how you read the card, energy here with the Magician, and Libra energy here of Justice. And it's interesting, there's a theme coming up here that came up for, who was it? Was it Gemini? I think it might have been Gemini, actually. That this sense of wanting to deal with the consequences of things that you have chosen for yourself, that you have manifested for yourself. You know, there are points in time, in the past, where it would have been easy for you to consider yourself a victim, and maybe you did. Maybe you considered that for a while until you worked through it and got rid of it. But that was because life had this unpleasant way of just sort of happening at you. It's almost like the drama followed you around. And so much energy was given over to being reactive to that. Like feeling the sword go through the heart, and usually by the hand of somebody else, and then going, fuck, how do I deal with this? And if you're really honest with yourself, quite a lot of your life has been firefighting that which other people have done at you. Circumstances and situations, and maybe possibly specific people. But the Queen of Swords is Libra too. And for me, a lower echo of the Justice card, just as the King of Swords is. Sort of one part of the equation, you know. Now, the Queen of Swords is that level of discernment that I'm talking about that Leo now holds. The Justice card is the consequences. And I don't think that you're prepared to deal with the consequences of other people's stuff anymore, right? It's almost like you kind of incinerate people as they get too close anyway, if their intentions are not good, right? Because you're on top of your shit now, for sure. You've got very discerning about who you let in and who you don't. But more than that, very discerning about what you allow to affect you and what you don't, right? We see how this kind of biggest cycle that you've moved into is one that is far more self-validating than ever before. And now what you want is the consequences of proactivity. So here you are as the Magician. Here you are looking in your book of knowledge, right? Here's all the shit and things that were shit in the past. Let's put those to one side and let's actually start aiming for what we can manifest for ourselves. No longer reactive, but proactive. And the Magician says, you're bound only by the limits of your own imagination. And it feels to me like you are reaching up higher than you ever have before. I've got the Six of Cups appearing in the reverse there, which is an absolutely true statement, right? You're not going back to the past. The past is for internal journeying. It is not for laying forwards and deciding, and being significant in how you react to things in the future, right? By which I mean, we're not taking all the shit from the past and going, well, because it's been shit in the past, it's probably going to be shit in the future too, because all of these ways in which it was shit before. No, this actually is the seat of your wisdom, the things that you have discovered in the past, about your past, as you have gone into it with the Hermit. We've got the Death card with the Ten of Cups at the bottom of the deck. I did speak last year, I remember distinctly, Leo, about pointing out that it was your job to be the sun. You know, don't be looking around for other people to illuminate you on a thing. And I feel like that's being harked back to here with this Hermit. And this Ten of Cups. Now, there are people around you who are important, for the most part, I think. And there are people who don't have the ability as yet to be able to do what you do, right? And so whether you're inspiring them or whether you're actually taking them with you, you are having a big effect on the world at large right now. Even though that's not where you're really looking, not what you're really paying attention to. You know, the Death card is a card of significant and, you know, potentially quite formidable change. The past is how you learn about yourself. The things that you have experienced are how you learn about yourself, and you've twigged that, you've worked it out, Leo. So now the past is where you go when you need to find out some more about yourself. But you're not taking it forwards with you. Now you're looking in an entirely different direction. Tell me about this Justice card, please. Thank you. We have the Empress and we have the Two of Swords. The consequences of bringing something new for yourself. Really, it's all kind of circulating around this idea that there was so much that you did not see before in the past. Magician's at the bottom of this deck too. A very, very strong indication that you are in manifestation mode at the moment. You are working on something really quite big, and it's not quite ready for it to be birthed yet with this Empress card. You know, it's still very much in the gestational period. But as you know, I see that Two of Wands, Two of Swords, beg your pardon, as a willful ignorance to stuff, right? It's stuff that's there that can be seen, but for whatever reason our brains have been trained not to see it. Well, that's what you've been undoing over the last 5 years. I feel like a huge realization is that you have stood in your own way. I mean, we all stand in our own way, but the extent to which you have stood in your own way. You know, I remember doing a personal reading with a Taurus earlier this year, and she was telling me about how she'd been working somewhere, and then she'd ended up there, where she was working for shut down. And she thought, wow, I need to do my tarot instead, right? And so she'd been reading tarot for a while. She was like, I'm going to set up a business doing that. And then she was just absolutely hit by this imposter syndrome. And the important part of what I'm remembering here about that personal reading was, she said, you know, I kind of wandered around thinking, why me? Why was I in any way qualified to tell other people, you know, how to fix their lives or whatnot? Why was I, you know, how could I be considered to be any good at doing this thing when everything's going wrong for me? And she said, and I literally just turned it around by thinking, why not me? She said, and it changed the frame of everything almost immediately. And I get a sense, as I'm remembering, it's just coming up here, I'm getting a sense of this being a very similar thing. Why not you, Leo? Why can't you have these things? But there's no sense of resentment, there's no sense of bitterness that you haven't had them before now. There's an understanding that everything had to be experienced the way that it was experienced. You had to put yourself through grubbing around in the dark the way that you have done in order to come back to this kind of essential sunshine that sits within. You know, I'm looking at the Sun card, I'm looking at the Empress, I'm looking at the two Magicians, and they're all permeated with this yellow. Now, can't remember if yellow is supposed to indicate, you know, spirituality or something like that in the tarot. But it feels to me like it's self-awareness. The sun being the card of consciousness. These two magicians with the yellow in the background there. It's kind of like putting yourself into the field. And there's the Empress, you know, utilising the field, utilising your skills, utilising your connection to it, utilising your self-awareness and saying, okay, now I'm going to change my world in some way. I'm going to create something new, whether it is a new environment for you to live in, a new, in all senses, financial environment, geographical environment. You feel to me like you're embodying the energy of the sun in a far more natural way than it felt to us when we were talking about it last year, and I said, Leo, like, we have to be the sun. There was something, I feel, that was kind of forced by us at that point, because that's how we felt. We had to do it, right? It doesn't matter what's going on inside or how painful everything is, right? We have to be the sun. We have to shine for everybody else. Now, it feels much more natural. And it feels like it's something that you are capable of tapping into at will. You know, does the sun shine only if people pay attention to it? No, it just does its thing all the time. It doesn't require an audience. You don't require an audience. Is the sun aware of everything that it affects? Well, you know, first we must ask if it's conscious, but I feel like it probably is. No, it has no idea. It just does its thing. And that's what you're doing here, Leo. You're just doing your thing. So what we've got coming towards you for November is the 8 of Wands. And I don't think that that's going to come as a surprise to any Leo that has been working in the way that I have described for the last few months. It is things stepping up a level. It is things increasing. It's increasing levels of momentum towards what it is that you are working for here. We've got the Queen of Wands and the Page of Pentacles coming out underneath here, signifying not only that it is something new, rather than, well, it's kind of new and it's kind of not. There's a familiarity with it now, right? Because what we don't have is the Ace of Pentacles right here. We do have it. Where did we have it? We had it underneath the High Priestess. So we're working towards something very, very new. But at this point, the momentum is building with something that you are already familiar with, right? So whether this is taking something that you already have and changing its direction slightly, or whether this is something that you have newly come across recently and now you are looking to expand it, it'll be different for each of you. But the Page of Pentacles is speaking to that expansion. You know, the Page of Pentacles for me is a point of rediscovery often with things, and from there there's a very natural order of progression. So we go from there to the Knight of Pentacles, then to the Queen, and then to the King. You know, the King being, say, the attainment of whatever it is that you are working towards. And it's here with the Mother of Wands. You know, there are some bold moves that are going to be made by you in the month of November. And whether it is that is causing the momentum to pick up, I imagine that's probably a huge part of it, or whether the universe is kind of leaning into what you're doing, right? So you're being here, you're being a Queen of Wands about everything, right? You're really holding it internally, because Queen of Wands is actually an Aries card for me. King of Wands is Leo. But I've done it again. Absolutely mind farted. There we go. For fuck's sake. We've got the Page of Pentacles again, and we've got the Five of Pentacles here. It's very mindful. There's the Fool at the bottom of the deck. It's very mindful of Five of Pentacles. It seems like a very sensible place to be, right? Let me just show you those, right? So we've got the Page of Pentacles showing up again, right? That's twice in the same place. So we have something that is important and there is a desire to expand it, right? Whatever that is, whatever it is that you're working towards, it's getting expanded. We've got the Eight of Wands speaking to an increase in momentum, perhaps an increase in communication with people who might be able to help you do what you're trying to do. But we have here also the Queen of Wands. There is a knowledge here that what you are doing is the right thing, not just for you, but also for the people around you who are maybe dependent on you. And it's all being done with this very mindful consideration of the Five of Pentacles. Now that is a card of poverty and it's a card of lack, and it could be quite a negative card, but for the way that we've seen these other potentially negative cards show up in the earlier bit of the reading, the Three of Swords, the Nine of Swords, the Three of Swords again, Five of Pentacles, these are all particular considerations which in the past would have held you back from doing a thing. It's going to cost a lot of money. Bit scared about that. I'm going to have to, spend money, and quite aside from the, the stereotype of Leos. Like sometimes Leos do get a bit afraid of money because of, it's an expression of power. And often when you've got a Leo who's afraid of money, they're actually afraid of quite a few other things too, right? They're not owning all of their shit. Quite literally, right? This Five of Pentacles seems to me, though, to be the other side of a choice that you have made. So you can either be Page of Pentacles, you can speculate, you can invest, you can put your time and care and effort into something, or you can be Five of Pentacles about it. You can be afraid. You can be concerned about the potential of poverty hitting you. I think you've already made your decision because we're looking at it here, but where these considerations in the past have played a part in your life, and it doesn't have to be financial poverty, it can be lots of other things too. Whatever you are capable of investing becomes a pentacle, I think, in the cards, and therefore the lack or the potential for the lack is indicated by this Five of Pentacles. An earlier version of you wouldn't be prepared to do what you're about to do, Leo. But there's the King of Cups underneath there again. But because of what you've experienced and because of how you've processed it and because of how you've grown and how strong you have now become, you're willing to step off that cliff. You're willing to take that risk. You're willing to put yourself into something that you have never experienced before, because it is a necessary step for you. It's the next stage of your evolution, and you know that. To see the Fool card here is really beautiful, because I said we've got these cards of culmination and ending going on here. We need things to be tied up before we can move on. And so many people sit kind of sputtering around at the end of a cycle without quite having the courage of their convictions to close it out completely. Now, a lot of what you've been contemplating, you can hear my cockerel in the background, a lot of what you've been contemplating is past stuff, or at least what it's given you that helps you move forwards. And that is the completion. Being able to consult with it but not drag it forwards is a really useful skill. And now we have this supreme card of a beginning, of a new cycle starting for you. And there's lots of things here. I think you might have been closing out cycles all over, actually. Detaching yourself from situations, detaching yourself from all sorts of things, ready to make the next move. November's going to see things pick up a little bit. I feel like the Five of Pentacles is really useful for you there, to bounce off. But it seems to be a very clear choice between focusing on what you have rather than what you haven't, and then expanding what you have. This is very interesting. I'm going to go to Vimeo now. So if you are interested in joining me over there, so we can dig into November a little deeper, you are very, very welcome. The link is down in the description box. You could alternatively come and join my circle community. And if you sign up for the middle tier of that, you get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost. And I am putting up the 6-month overviews there very, very soon. So getting plenty of bang for your buck. But if neither of those appeal, neither of those apply, that is absolutely fine. Whatever you're doing, Leo, keep doing it. And keep doing it in the way that you're doing it, because you are making progress, huge progress. And to say you're inspiring other people. And once upon a time, that would have really meant something quite profound to you. You would have found that quite a validating thing. Now, it's just like water off a duck's back. It's not... you're kind of glad that you're inspiring people, but it's not why you're doing it. You don't need an audience for what you're doing. And I think that's tremendous. But expect things to pick up in November. Pick up a pace, right? Start picking up a bit of speed, a bit of momentum. And ready yourself for that, you know? Okay. I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I will see you soon.